Hi, so this is our PowerPoint on cognitive development in early intervention. We're going to start by talking a little bit about Piaget's stages of cognitive development. If you look on the Blackboard site, you will see that there's a video of Piaget's cognitive development stages. So that goes along with this PowerPoint. So please be sure to watch the YouTube video that is up there about Piaget to kind of connect all it up together. So as you can see in early intervention, we are at the sensory motor, birth to 2, and the beginning of the preoperational stage in terms of Piaget. In the sensory motor means that the child is mainly in this stage of life going to be learning through their sensation, what they touch, smell, feel, taste, and their motor skills, what they manipulate, how they move through their environment. And that's how the child is going to mostly learn their cognitive skills. So here's a bit of the sequence of skill acquisition with respect to cognitive skills in birth to 3. So early on, babies are going to learn about object permanence. That means that when they start to understand by 3 to 5 months that when an object is gone, it hasn't disappeared. That's when they think peekaboo is pretty funny because here it goes and here it comes back again. Now, prior to this, if something goes away, they just ignore it. So if a toy is in their visual field and you move that toy around behind them or under their chair or whatever, they're just going to ignore it and get interested in something else. They won't realize that it still exists. By 3 to 5 months, the child will start looking for that object because they know that it's still there even though you moved it. And that's called object permanence. It's a very important skill for little ones to start to learn early on. By 6 months, babies are calling out for attention, not just when they're uncomfortable physically, not just for physiological needs. They're going to actually start calling out because they want attention. They want to be held. They want to be played with. They want somebody to come and be in their space. So that's different. The child prior to 6 months is only going to call out if they are hungry, cold, hot, need a diaper change, something like that. So there's a shift at 6 months where they want attention. They also are going to understand cause and effect, which means they understand that if they whack the toy, it makes noise. They're going to understand that if they drop the rattle from their high chair, it's going to bounce off the floor and cause you to come over and find out what happened. So not only are they going to have the nice noise of the toy on the floor, but they're also going to have the effect of mom coming in to see what's wrong. So they do a lot of playing with cause and effect, which from a parent perspective can be a little bit frustrating, but it is the baby learning how things work in their world. Then by 7 to 9 months, they're starting to experiment with in, on, in, out, on, off, and all those sort of things. And if you recall, that's also when babies are getting really good at dump and fill. So the cognitive skill of in and out, on and off, learning those concepts, goes along with the motor skill of being able to actually put objects in a container, dump them out, starting to stack objects on top of each other. So there's connections there between their cognitive learning and their physical abilities. And they learn together. And in fact, children who don't experiment with in, out, on, off don't really learn the concepts unless they do the actions. And this also follows into their speech development. So the children that don't crawl under the coffee table don't really learn under. They have to actually do it. Children that don't try to stack things on and watch them fall off don't really learn the concepts of on and off. So they have to learn them, talk about them, do them, and all that together. Also around 7 to 9 months, children start to respond to the word no. Now they respond in all sorts of ways, as children are wont to do. So some of them stop what they're doing when you say no. Others keep testing, and still others maybe laugh or do something else. But they are responding to no, generally by stopping what they're doing. By 10 to 12 months, a child is able to follow a one-step direction, a simple one-step direction. By that I mean something like take it, give me, go get, give ball, something very, very simple. They're going to start to understand. They're also doing more with object permanence and problem solving. So now they're starting to search for objects that are lost, not just know that they're gone. So once you drop something out of sight, they're not just going to look for it. They're going to like really go after it, and they're going to dig things up and really try to find it. They love playing hide and seek at this age, and they always hide in the same place because that's their hiding spot. They're starting to solve problems. So if something is stuck somewhere, they're going to try to unstuck it. They're going to really work hard to figure things out. And they're starting to understand that objects exist apart from themselves. So they're starting to understand that there's me and then there's this object, and we're not one thing, right? There's my stroller and there's me, and we're separate. And this is an important cognitive realization for kids around 12 months of age. Now, by 13 to 18 months, they're using trial and error to solve their problems. Instead of just digging through things, they're going to try things. So when they have a puzzle, for example, and they've got a circle, square, and a triangle that go in little puzzle pieces, they're going to try the circle in the square hole and bang it in there a few times. And when it doesn't go, they're going to try the circle in another hole. And they're going to keep trying it in the different holes till they find one that it goes in. And then they'll move to the next piece and start trying to put it into a hole. Maybe they'll try turning it around, flipping it over, chewing on it a little bit. They'll try all different things to solve the problem, but they use trial and error mostly to solve their problems. So using objects conventionally is, for example, using a spoon to pretend to eat, using a hairbrush to brush the baby's hair, using a toy broom to sweep, using a cloth to dust, right? They're going to be imitating what they see happening around them and using objects as they're meant to be used. And this is important because they learn by imitating. So as they are imitating the adults around them and the other children around them, they are starting to learn how objects are used. And they don't want to mess with that just yet. They don't want to try to use objects in silly ways. They want to start by using them the way they're supposed to be used so they can understand them. And they're starting to think about categories of things. So they're starting to think about food as a category, or drinks as a category, or clothing, or baby dolls. So they're starting to understand if you say, go get a baby doll, they know that it could be any baby doll and that all baby dolls are part of this baby doll group. And they are now starting to use tools. So they're using objects to meet their needs. So they might use one toy to bang on another toy if it's stuck to get it loose. They might use a toy to dig through a toy box to find the toy that they need. So they're going to start using tools to get their needs met. And they're using speech to get their needs met. They're not just banging on things, they're asking for help. So while at 6 months they'll call for attention, at 13 to 18 months they're going to say help, right? They're going to ask for help, help stuck, or, doll stuck, or something like that. And they're going to ask for assistance, or they're going to ask for food. They're going to ask for all sorts of things. And they're going to start really using speech as opposed to yelling to get their needs met. At 19 to 24 months, they're going to follow two-step directions. Again, simple two-step directions. Like take this and throw it in the garbage. They like throwing things in the garbage at this age. It's a lot of fun. Or get your coat and bring it to me. Two-step directions that are pretty simple. They're going to be more systematic about their searching when they go looking for things. They're going to start in one room and go to the next room. They're not just going to run around randomly. They're going to be more specific and more systematic in how they are solving their problems and searching things. Now they are mostly using speech as a mode of communication. They're really not crying a whole lot unless they're very sad or unless they get hurt, but they're not using crying as a way of getting their point across. They're really using speech to tell people what they need and what they want. Now they're starting to show insight. They're starting to understand things a little bit. They're starting to understand when people get sad. They're starting to understand how things work and understand their world a little bit better. And I like to give an example here, a little story about when my oldest was right around 2 years old. She's about 20, 22 months in there. And myself and her father were talking about who was going to take her with us out for an excursion, or actually one of us was staying. So I was staying home and my husband was going out, and I said, oh, she can stay here with me. I'd love to have her company. And my husband said, oh, no, I'd love to take her. She can come with me in the car. She'd like to go for a ride maybe. And we were, kind of deciding, who she was going to go with. And she decided that that meant that there was some strife in there, and that she showed insight into the conversation. And she said, I go with Papa. Mommy, I still love you. And so she was showing insight to say that I really want to go with Papa because I want to go out, but I want Mom to know I'm showing insight into her feelings, knowing that her feelings could be hurt if I choose to go with him. So while that was adorable, it's a showing some baby insight. Again, with the using tools more and more and very purposefully, they're starting to label things symbolically, like these are my toys, these are my dollies, this is my lunch, right? They're starting to use more symbolic group kind of terms for things. And they're using mental schemes to present concepts. So they're using ideas to present their concepts, not just labeling things. So our cognitive skills and our motor skills are very interrelated. Motor skills are related to reflexes. Reflexes are related to sensory. It's all interconnected. So let me give a few examples here. So our motor skills and our reflexes are related in that if we have good motor tone and good use of our muscles and good ability to have stability and mobility, good stable core, then our reflexes are more likely to integrate. If we have neurological damage to our nervous system, our motor skills are not going to work well, and we are more likely to have obligatory reflexes that get in the way. So those are connected together. Our reflexes also allow children to perform actions so that they learn about their world through sensory input and feedback that provides. So if a child is able to look at reach for what they're looking at, and that is again the ATNR, the asymmetric tonic neck reflex, which allows a child to touch what they're looking at, they're going to get sensory information by touching that object and then bringing it to their mouth and learning about it. So those two things are connected. Cognitive development pushes motor skill, and motor skills push cognitive development both ways. So if you have a child who's very curious about their world, it's going to encourage them to get crawling and get mobile and get up and walking so that they can start to discover things. And on the other hand, children who move start to discover things just because they're moving, and they climbed over to the couch and fell off it and went, oh, look, that's slippery. I guess I fell down. Let me see, that couch cushion was all kind of slippery and unstable. Maybe I should try climbing a different way. So their cognitive skills are going to get them to do more motor exploration, and their motor skills are going to get them to understand cognitively more what's going on. When we look at cognition and language in very young children, we also have to understand how closely these two are tied. Most of the way that we assess language in small children are through cognitive skills that they can or can't do. And most of the ways that we test cognition are through language-based activities. So these things are very, very tied. It's very hard to pull apart in a birth to 3 age child what is a cognitive delay versus what is a language delay. They're very much put together, and it's very hard to figure that out. This is a very, very important concept to understand, so I want to make sure that you really understand this one. What is learning to mastery? Learning to mastery is when a child practices a skill enough to master it, then they can add a new skill. If children do not practice well enough or enough, they will not be able to build on that and get to mastery. So this happens a lot when we have children with ADHD. This actually doesn't happen when we have children with ADHD. Children with ADHD do not persist. They have poor attention span and poor persistence for tasks. Persistence meaning, stick-to-itness. So they're not always paying attention to what's going on, and they're flitting around from thing to thing in their brain. So they're not going to practice. And therefore, when a new skill is introduced, they're not going to be able to get there because they haven't attained the skills underneath it in order to build up. Scaffolding, right? We talked about scaffolding before and how skills have to be scaffolded. Well, children with poor attention and poor persistence and lack of practice can't build the bottom layers of the scaffold to build the next one on top. And this is critical for learning new skills. Children absolutely have to practice to mastery so that they can build the next skill. Another concept in cognitive development is the move towards autonomy and the struggle with dependence and self-doubt. A lot of different child psychologists talk about that struggle between autonomy and self-doubt. Children go through this right up through adolescence. They want to be all independent and move away from the parent, and then they come back and need comfort and reassurance. And then they move away again, and then they come back for more comfort and reassurance. And they struggle between those two things and play between those two things right through high school. And it's important when we're watching that happen that we appreciate that this is a normal part of childhood development, that they're going to be struggling between autonomy and self-doubt, being independent, being self-guided, being competent, and then being worried and needing support. And it goes back and forth. So my example down here at the bottom is a child drops an infant when they're dropped off at childcare or daycare or a babysitter or whatever. A very young child is going to cry because they don't understand that mommy's coming back, right? So they don't have that object permanence of understanding that. An older child in preschool is going to cry because of the self-doubt. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm really ready to be on my own. And then after the parent leaves, they're fine, and they realize that they're good with that. A child can then, again, when the parent comes back around to pick them up, cry again just to let the parent know, hey, I really missed you, and I'm really not all that sure, and I'm not ready to be on my own. I did okay today, but, don't take this as that I'll never need you again. Kitty's sense of humor is fantastic. I think it's just hysterical what they think is funny. So mostly what kids think is funny are things that don't go together, like when you put a dish strainer on your head as a hat. A dish strainer isn't a hat, but if you put it on your head, it's pretty funny. So peekaboo is you're here, you're not here. That again is playing with object permanence. And so here's my favorite little 3-year-old knock knock joke. Knock, knock, who's there? Cows go who? No, silly, cows go moo. So it's those things that don't go together. Like, no, that's wrong. I know what cows say moo. So that to a little kid is funny. And the reason we care about Kitty's sense of humor is because appropriate sense of humor is a good indicator of cognitive skill development. Kids that don't have a sense of humor and don't get age appropriate, like a 3-year-old who doesn't get this knock knock joke, we have to be concerned that their cognitive skills need a little bit of a boost, that they're not quite where they need to be. So we want to use sense of humor as a fun way to play with kids, obviously, but also as an indicator of where their cognitive skills are at. So following directions, a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 3-year-old, just to show you what typical go get the fill in the blank, go get your shirt, go get your shoes, go get your jacket, right? That's a 1-year-old, one-step direction. What 2-year-olds can typically do is go get your napkin and put it in the garbage. Go get your pajamas and give them to me. Go get your dirty clothes and put them in the hamper, those sort of things. And then 3-year-olds are able to follow much more complex directions like they would give in preschool, which is everybody come to the circle and find a color to sit on. We're going to do music time now. That's pretty complicated. And a 3-year-old can do that. So why do we care about cognitive development when we are not just cognitive clinicians, right? We look at all sorts of things. Why do we care about cognitive skills? Well, we want to be able to choose age-appropriate and level-appropriate activities for our kiddos when we're playing with them. So we want to be sure that we know where they're at, know what their cognitive level is and their age, and make sure to provide activities that are going to be interesting and at the right level so that we give them enough of a challenge so that they can start to make gains, but not so much of a challenge that they get frustrated. We have to strike that just right challenge, that balance of pushing the child in an area of interest, back to MOHO again, we got to care about their interest and their volition, and a little bit too hard so that they just want that extra little bit. And then we can have them move forward in their developmental sequence. We also need to know about cognitive development because we need to know what's next. What are we looking for next? Just like in motor development, we want to know the age of the child. We want to know all of the cognitive sequence so we can say, okay, this child is 2 years old, but functioning down here closer to a 6-month cognitive level. So let me just go 6 month plus a scooch and see if I can't challenge this child and move them forward a little bit. That last part in there, what to offer when you get them in a great spot, is so when you have a child who is maybe having attentional issues, for example, who is not able to attend to much of anything, and you work with them on their sensory processing things, which we'll get into later in the semester, and you get them attending and focused and really in a good spot, you have to know what academic or cognitive things to work on once you get them there. So you get the child attending and making eye contact and all this wonderful stuff. Then you have to do something with it. You just don't want to say, okay, great, they made eye contact, that's nice. No, that's not enough. Now we have to do something functional with that. So you have a child, for example, with autism who has a really hard time with eye contact and attending to other people. You finally get him sitting, looking up at you and smiling. Now you have to know what cognitive level is that child at, what's the right age and level appropriate activities that I should bring out so that I can take that eye contact and make the most of the attention that I now have.